could have done that too. That probably have a better effect of it. Because you could see people just kind of the same stuff on it, and just start blazing out.
Right. Okay, in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. Amber, thank you for being here today and recording today's proceedings. To everybody here in those of you who have never been to a traffic commission meeting, of which I'm seeing a few faces, I'll just Denise Morales and Lieutenant Laser, as well as two community members that represent different regions in the city, but also have a wealth of expertise, having served on the commission for a long time. Do you want to just introduce yourself, Dean?
Dean Evans.
Dino Mandros.
And we also have members of the Department of Public Works. We have Cindy McCormick and Director Stephen Campbell, and we may be joined by another member of our team here shortly. So that's the lay of the land. We have an agenda before us. We're going to start with the meeting minutes from May 21. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by aye.
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 All right, there's no new business on the agenda. We are going to advance past the consent agenda. We'll circle back to that. That's really in the interest of keeping the moving along for all of you, so you don't have to sit through all of that. And we'll move to the action agenda item. When I get to each item, if you are here, please stand up and come to the podium, and please introduce yourself, your name and your block. Like I live on the 500 block of Lemon Street, for example, and why you are here, and we will begin to have a conversation about the issue that you're bringing forward. So the first item is 32-2021. Catherine Stork, is she here? Hi, Catherine. Hi. Please come up to the podium.
Hi.
Hi.
Wow, this is intimidating.
Don't be intimidated. Welcome to Traffic Commission. So you are requesting an additional permit for a shared single-family residence on the 200 block of West Lemon Street.
Correct.
And do you want to say anything more about your request?
I'm one of 3 total housemates. We just rent there. And I guess the other 2 were already committed to have their parking permits. And I work in healthcare, so I kind of need a better access to my car, whether like somewhere on that block would be just nice to have a permit, so I can because I'm on call sometimes. Sorry, I'm I'm stuttering my words and stuff. So it just would be nice not to have to walk very far to get to my car when I need access to it at all times. So I would call up any time of the day.
Yeah. And this is a permit parking block.
Correct.
So we have a number of permit-related action items on the agenda for this. And I would love to have some feedback from the committee, although I know we are months away. We are in the process of amending the parking permit process.
The residential parking.
The residential parking permit in particular, because we have a number of issues and very few people on the street, and the number of permits that are guaranteed that per household already exceed the number of parking spots on the street. And we have just a challenge because we have people who are living in one house with multiple vehicles, and even if you provide permit parking, you're still not meeting the needs of the residents on that street who are eligible for a permit. And in your case, there are a limited number of permits per residence.
Right.
So we've tried to fix this by having a residential parking permit. And in fact, we've made it worse in a way by having permit parking. And it's spreading throughout the city as we have 2 additional requests on the agenda just today. So I'm open to suggestions related to this request.
Well, as has been the tradition, we would normally just grant the request until the end of the calendar year. And then obviously just go from there. But there will definitely, and we can do that. It would be in line with what we've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like you said, residents have to be aware that the number of permits being issued or available by the number of houses.
Parking spaces, so there's no guarantee that you'll still find a parking space even with paying for a permit. It's just something to be aware of, and that is one of the big issues we are addressing with what will probably become a significant revamping and overhaul of the permit parking system in the city. That's not going to occur this year. At the earliest, we'll start to probably discuss it next year. But I would say the way we've been discussing it as a
special committee, probably by the start of 2023, the permit parking system as we know it in the city will not exist and will be vastly different.
So at this point, do you want to make a motion, Dean?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to grant the request for the additional permit to the end of calendar year 2021.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye?
Aye. So now you know you're good to the end of this year. There's changes coming. You can communicate that to your roommates
I will.
as well. And there will be a communication process with all residential permit holders as we move through this process.
Okay.
Okay?
And then how do I move forward with that?
So typically we have somebody here from the parking authority, but they're not here today. So Rhonda, can you follow up with Ms. Stork and let her know how to access that permit? Okay, Rhonda will be in touch with you.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
And then am I free to go? Or I don't know. what the
Yep, you're good.
process is.
You're
Thank
all
you.
done, approved, ready to go. All right, Adriana, not your first rodeo. Hi.
I missed you guys.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, very good.
Yeah.
So we've got a request to remove no parking signs.
Shift it. Just to shift it.
Okay, a request related to a 4-way stop
Yep.
and a request for permit parking.
Yes. Only in the evening.
Okay,
Only in the evening. And
right.
it's on a block that is not surrounded by permit parking at all.
Yes.
There's no
I'd
permit
like to say
parking
that
in our
that will
hood.
make the difference, but it's like a domino.
Look, I got a whole reason. Got a
Okay,
whole thing.
let's start with your first request.
Yeah, this is a very old picture. It's nice to see though. This is before I moved in and before it was redone. But when you're looking at these garages, the garage on the right is used for a vehicle. The garage on the left is not. So where the parking sign is on the left, it only allows for 2 vehicles. However, if it was shifted and I don't know. So right now, the way it looks, you could probably fit 3 vehicles in a row right there between the stop sign and between that no parking sign. After that garage was redone, I think the parking sign was shifted a little bit more to the left towards the stop sign. So it only allows for 2 vehicles. However, this garage, the one on the right, where it says positively no parking, that is where a vehicle resides. The little section on the left is only where lawnmowers reside. But the parking sign, the way it's situated, is situated as if a vehicle resides in that left parking garage, and there's no way a vehicle can be in there at all. So basically what our neighbors would like to see, what my neighbors would like to see, is that parking sign just shifted enough to the right to be able to have a third vehicle parking there, which people do park there pretty frequently, and the neighbors on Ruby there don't mind, but if, you know, the parking authority comes through or anything, they get ticketed then. So we would just like to see it shifted
Okay.
to add an additional parking space.
So is there, Lieutenant Laser, is there legal parking before that white car to the stop sign?
What's that? Between the stop sign and the white car, no, that would be your 20-foot setback from the crosswalk.
Everybody does park there. Everybody parks there. Everybody parks basically from the stop sign to the no parking sign. That is never ticketed there.
They may be able to park, they might park there, but it's against the law to park that close to the crosswalk intersection.
Right.
So they can be ticketed.
Well, nobody gets ticketed right there. Let's put it that way. They get ticketed if they are right where that no parking sign is. So technically, that would give us 2 spots. Let's put it that way. If that parking sign was shifted just slightly back towards that garage that is not in use.
Okay, I think that this is something that we can remedy, although I want to just be level setting expectations that they're really, even with moving that sign back, there's probably still only going to be 2 legal parking spaces there, not 3.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is one thing though. In the city, there's something called a repressed curve.
Yeah.
So that area is within the repressed curve. And if you look at where that parking sign is, that is probably meeting the 18 inches from the line of the garage. Even though it's not used for a vehicle, it's still a repressed curve. And you can't park in a depressed curve.
It's not completely, this
Exactly.
is, again, this is an old picture.
Okay.
Everything's been redone since then. I'm not 100% sure if it is 18 inches. I don't know, I
So
haven't
the
been out
sign
there
should-
with
so
a
basically
ruler.
You have your curb that
Yep.
you come down.
Yep,
When it slopes back up again, as soon as you get to the top of the slope,
18
18
inches.
inches over, that's where the sign should be.
right. I think it's more than 18 inches. I could be wrong, though. I'm not very good with spatial anything.
The other thing I'm not sure about too is if that vehicle leaves that garage, what is on the other side of the street? Are there parked cars on the other side of the street?
On the
That
other,
would make it difficult for somebody to come out of that garage if they have a more narrow
Turning radius.
turning radius.
our street is actually very wide. Most people double park quite a bit often. Fifth Street is really wide.
It's a two-way.
Yep. I watch them come in and out all the time because I'm right on the corner there, basically. And they have to, first of all, unlock and lock their garage when they come out, so they have no issues coming in and out.
Okay,
And with cars parked there constantly anyway, it doesn't seem to be an issue.
okay.
But
All right. Cindy?
Yeah, I think just the issue of unless you say that the curb was replaced and is now in front of that area that's not accessed by vehicles, I don't think we should be moving the sign.
okay.
If I could, this is one that we didn't get out to check for a couple of reasons that I won't get into. Just to make sure, and in all fairness to her, I think this might be an item to table for next meeting so that we can get out and actually get the current info and measurements off of it.
Okay. All right, we'll go check it out.
Cool.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to table 33, 2021.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Adriana. All right, next, the 4-way stop at the intersection of Pearl and Fifth.
Yeah. I don't know the crash data there, but I do know that Wheatland Middle School is just a block away and a lot of kids are crossing there. I do know that people speed consistently down from Manor Street to the next stop sign, which I think is at 4th Street, if I'm not mistaken. And with Smith Waddell Elementary School opening up as well right there, we're going to have even more kids coming down that way. it's a place that, since I've moved in November, all my neighbors have said, we really wish there was a four-way stop sign there. The church is there as well. There are piano keys there now too, I think, if I'm not mistaken. This is an older photo again. There's also a huge pothole. But
Where's the huge pothole?
right where it says Pearl Street.
Okay,
I told one of the guys the other day.
okay, good. We have a hotline. Call it.
I call a lot, don't
Okay,
worry.
That's good. All right, so Cindy, do we have crash data for this intersection, or do we need to look at that?
Rhonda did look at it briefly. Do you need to look at it in more detail, or do you think that's all that there was?
Fifth and Pearl Street, and I found one.
Right.
Class B.
So one reportable, which doesn't meet the threshold that has been set for us by the state.
Right. How about with the amount of kids coming through? Because I know that has sometimes,
We collected traffic volumes. It definitely doesn't meet the volume warrants for an all-way stop sign. We did collect pedestrian volumes. Obviously, school's not in session at this point, so I don't know how that would impact it. But just based on our initial observations, it doesn't meet the warrants for an all-way stop sign.
is this something we could reconsider when school is back in session, when we can have a better idea of how many kids are coming through? Because, I mean, it is, that goes directly to Wheatland, and that is also where Smith Waddell is going to be coming out as
Typically do
well.
the pedestrian counts, Cindy?
We just do it when we're doing the traffic volume counts, just to see the volume of pedestrians. It would be a matter of, whether there seem to be a lot of conflicts, though, unnecessary conflicts that couldn't be.
So it's not just the people, the amount of people that
Right.
are walking along the street, but it's the amount of times that they're crossing over, or if they're turning lanes or other
Right,
things like
if
that.
there were, visibility issues or something like that, that may make it, seem like, if there's a lot of turning vehicles and the pedestrians are in that approach to the crosswalk, something, that's showing that there's some conflicts there that
Okay.
would need to be dealt with.
Joanna, what kind of school is there?
There is the middle school,
Oh,
and then the elementary school that is opening up as well. Well, there's technically it's going to be two elementary schools, because Burroughs is going to be busing their kids to Buchanan
Yeah.
next year.
All right, I think we should
Crazy.
maybe
we-
have a, I'm also curious where our crossing guards are going to be.
That's what I was.
They're not there. They are over on West End, but after that,
But I'm just thinking if Burroughs is also coming over, the traffic patterns and all of that. I don't know, Lieutenant Laser, have we had any conversations with the district about the traffic patterns and how
Not at
that's?
this point, no.
Okay. All right. I think given the fact that this doesn't meet the warrants that we have to, which are basically a different way of saying, it doesn't meet the criteria that the state has established for us in terms of implementing a four-way stop sign, I'm going to make a motion to deny. What I also just ask is that Sergeant or Lieutenant Laser, if you could please follow up with Joe about what their plans are for this area and traffic, as well as the school crossing guards. And I also have an update for you about that
All right.
as well.
I know there is a shortage right now of school crossing guards.
There are shortages everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have enough, and this is a request to anybody who's watching or right here in this room. There are 60 or 70 vacancies within the school district of Lancaster, and the ability to provide lunches, school crossing guards, a lot of things, and restart our schools hinges on filling those jobs. So apply. Okay, I've made a motion. Is there
I'll
a second?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Adriana, parking permits.
Yep, we only want an evening one. The church that you see on the corner right there, they hold evening meetings, AA, NA, whatever kind of meetings. Also, if you look further down our block, about, say, I don't know, I'm not very good with fractions, but about a quarter of our block is They're garages, as you can see right there, that take up a good amount of our block. Not only that, on the other side, on Ruby, it's an RRTA bus route, so that takes up a lot. Let's see what else. There's no other permit parking streets around. And yeah, this is like the first thing my neighbors talked about when I moved in, that they would like to see is permit parking, because we consistently see a lot of people, especially from Ruby Street, because of RTA, et cetera, parking their 3 or 4 vehicles on our block. And yeah, they just want it for the evening. And I did this for them, and I'm happy to stand up here and say I wouldn't mind it either, because I have 1 car and a computer that is my livelihood, and when I have to park in dark alleyways and then walk back to my house late at night sometimes, it's something I would not like to lose. But yeah, they're totally for it.
Okay.
And there's also no, from what I've seen, from walking through the neighborhood, et cetera, we don't have other permit parking streets. And I have a friend who lives on the 800 block of 5th Street. They don't have the same issues that we have. 6th Street doesn't seem to have the same issues, same with Prangley, et cetera. So it just seems to be a little bit more unique to our block.
Okay. I understand and appreciate all of the things that you've said. And in our experience, the way that this rolls is that 1 block goes, and then all the people that parked around the church move to the next block, and then the next block wants residential parking permit. And it ends up really affecting individuals who live on that block, such to the point that if there is somebody like Ms. Stork, who was just here, you can't get a 3rd parking permit because those folks are only allowed to have 2. So my question to you is, does everybody who signed this with 19 signatures understand that they can only ever have 2?
Yep. I told them that. They saw it on the paper. The vast majority of the houses on the block only have 2. There are some people who wouldn't sign because they don't even drive cars. And one lady didn't sign because she doesn't like me, so.
Okay. All right. My recommendation to commission is that we deny this for now, because we are going through all of these changes in process. And one of the other things that happens is that for people who don't sign it, or who have 3 vehicles, we're just going through a process of creating more transparency for how you end up getting your block in this way, because that now we deal with people on the other side who never wanted it on their block in the first place and who are affected in a different way. That's maybe not the case with this, if they all understand that they're only ever going to get 2 permits.
Yep.
But it also just creates not the kind of community goodwill that we want when we have different factions of people who are fighting over the number of permits that they have or are eligible for because of permit parking. And
Even if it's just the evening, and it's because we have so many transient cars coming in and out during the evening. And then folks
And is
like,
it every night, Adriana?
it's during the week that it's the worst.
Yeah, but is it every night?
It is every night. It is, I would say for me, and I a lot of times arrive home late because I have things to do in the evening, that 5 out of 7 nights of the week, I can't find a parking space anywhere close to here, which for me, whatever, but parking in a dark alley, walking home with my computer, and walking home with my 8-year-old doesn't necessarily feel safe. And I also don't just like to leave them and be like, I'll be back when I find a parking spot. As a single mom, I don't like to do that.
I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Under the criteria of the ideas we've been talking about for revamping the permit parking system, under the criteria we've been discussing, this application would not meet the criteria.
And why is that?
among other things, we're looking at all the factors that are driving parking in the area. We would need to count how many parking spaces are available in the block, how many how many permits would be created. So right off the bat, if the number of permits would exceed the number of parking spaces, it makes no sense. I described it as imagining you booking a flight for an airplane, and there's 100 seats on the airplane, but they sell 150 tickets.
Yeah.
And you're not guaranteed a seat. That's how the parking is. There could be X number of permits available, but the number of parking spaces doesn't exist. So you're paying for something that you're not guaranteed you're going to get.
What if I could tell you how many people live in each house and how many people have a car per house, for example? And like,
So the other thing we're also looking at is who's parking on the block. Are they within 3 to 4 blocks of the block? It's not realistic to really live in a city like Lancaster or most big cities and park in your same block.
agreed.
And now when so here we have the application to ban parking of anybody else on a block, with the exception of the people that live on that block, and then that, like Mayor Sarachi said, it starts pushing everybody out. It starts compressing the amount of traffic outward, and then each block subsequently falls in line with wanting permit parking for nothing more than the fact that it started here.
From 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
And we're faced with many issues, like, for example, in Southwest Lancaster, where there's standalone permit parking blocks for no reason other than the fact that people think that it's going to secure them a guaranteed parking space. And that's not really the logical way to approach permit parking. We want to look at things like, when we talk about permit parking, we want to look at, is there a business in the area that is overwhelming the parking? And then we need to look at establishing a permit parking to redirect business parking somewhere else and secure it for residents first and foremost.
Well, like, that's what the church is supposed to do. They're not supposed to have their people parking on our block.
Yeah, but one of the other things we'll also look at is when somebody says this, we want to investigate it first. We want to see, is there a problem? We would start to study the issue and look at the parking on a nightly basis, on a very regular basis, to see whether or not that criteria actually is causing a problem, instead of just simply blindly saying, yes, you got the 75%, you've got your permit.
Can we also just like give people lessons on how to park and how much room they need between each vehicle? Because I think that could be very helpful as well.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. So Adriana, I think that one of the things that this conversation is bringing up is that we do need to look at churches as like business in terms of people coming in and out, and that would be part of the criteria. But at this point, I am still going to hold, because level setting in terms of expectations about what can be accomplished with this, and the difference it's going to make, and the other impact on other neighbors that is going to come after you, I have to consider. And we just have only so many on-street parking spaces.
People got to stop having 5 cars in the city too. Like, that's.
Well, at this point, there's 5 people with cars that live in some houses, because it's mom, dad, and kids, and they all work, and that's a real thing too.
That is a real thing, but I can tell you that the people that do have 5 cars around the corner, it's only 2 people, and they have cars just for fun.
Yeah,
And
I got it. Okay, so I'd like
Thank
to
you.
make a motion to deny the request for petition for the 700 block of 5th Street.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, more to come on this. All right, South Ann, item number 36, Ms. Harder.
Mister. That's
Mr.
okay, though.
Sorry,
No, it's fine. I appreciate that, though.
Mr. Harder. Okay, now that we've just gone through all of that,
Yep, hard act to follow for sure. My name is Reese. I'm
Reese.
representing the 100 block of South Ann. And I have some of my neighbors here as well for us. Main petition here is just to have permit parking on that 100 block. That's my house right there. You can see it on the right. Essentially what you're seeing is Garden Court on the left of the screen there. And the streets east end, as well as actually don't know them by heart, but the adjacent streets around that entire apartment complex all have permit parking. Actually,
Yeah.
if you want to go the other way, yeah, go to that intersection, then bang a Ricky, or go right, and then go all the way down. You'll see all the permit parking that's around that,
Yeah.
except for our block.
We are super aware of the permit parking that's around Garden Court. And
Sure.
this is part of what gave rise to us looking at this whole permit parking issue
Mhm.
to begin with,
Yeah.
because of the number of blocks in this area and in the Southwest, where it was just like every year permit requests. And that has just pushed.
Yeah, it seems to push everything else
Yes.
to other streets.
Yes, and even the fact that you're here today requesting a permit parking for your block is actually reinforces our supposition that it's not working right now.
Right.
Yeah. So what are you seeing, just so that we can get a little bit of a sense?
Yeah, just for information purposes,
Yeah.
for sure. So essentially what you'll see is you'll find cars that are parked on this 100 block that don't move until they're street cleaning. And even with the street cleaning, they don't move anyway, so they just have tickets for particular times more than a month, where they'll get another ticket for street cleaning, which, number one, is terrible for the street itself. I mean, there's garbage pile up on the 200 block of South End now because of that. You'll see that people will park their cars on the 100 block, and then they'll immediately walk maybe another block down the road where they already have permit parking. And it's more of a recurrence than it isn't. I mean, a lot of people are parking on our side of the street and then walking directly into the Garden Court apartment as well, which I understand. I understand if you want to be closer to your doorway, that's fine. But from my understanding, there is plenty of parking lots and parking spots. One for Garden Court, also for our neighbors behind the house as well. There's a parking lot. And then there's another parking lot behind there. And then another block down, there's another parking lot. And to speak on the issue that you brought up, sir, I believe your name is Dean, I'm not 100% sure, but seeing churches as businesses, there's a church directly on this corner here, as well as a mini mart at the end of the street, and then a mini mart on the end of that street. Plenty of businesses, plenty of commerce, plenty of traffic coming in and out. And like I said, now there's permit parking on East End, and there's permit parking on the 0 block of South End, permit parking on this road, this road, this road. And then there's basically nowhere else to go for this particular street. And mind you that there is plenty of parking spots for this street based on the fact that there are no houses on the other side. So having permit parking on the street would be extremely beneficial to all of the neighbors on South End, particularly the 100 block.
Yep. Is there anybody else here that you brought that would like to address commission?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if anybody else
I don't
would like
know
to step
if anybody
up, but
else does.
We'll roll the dice.
You bet.
This has been like peeling an onion, and each block has a slightly different dynamic that's happening. But obviously, what we're trying to do isn't working, and the city was never built for this many cars either. So
Well,
there
when
you
our,
have it.
when our house was built, there was no cars.
There were no cars.
You know,
Exactly.
so.
Please introduce yourself, sir.
Hi, my name is Robert Wilson. I moved to I'm on 106 South End, moved there about 2 years ago, actually from Indiana. So coming to Lancaster was I didn't say it right. Lancaster to be here was a great experience to come into the city. We love it here. The biggest issue is the parking now. If you come back after 5, 6 o'clock at night, it's a roll of the dice. You're not going to probably find anything close. And what Reese was saying is permits have been granted to everywhere around us, so everything's funneling to us. And, you know, you don't feel like you can leave the home and arrive anytime after dinner time because you're just not going to find anything close. And then you're rolling the dice. You're going to end up parking where there's a parking permit area, and you're rolling the dice that you're going to get ticketed for that.
Yeah.
It's obviously, it's a very negative situation in the neighborhood.
Yes. I don't disagree.
you're correct about peeling the layers of the onion back, because here is a circumstance where the houses are only on one side of the street, and there's no residences on the other side of the street, where potentially here we could have far more parking spaces than potential number of permits, thus leaving space open. And that's again why we're looking at the permit parking process, saying, hey, you know, is it logical here? Because it's a possibility we could be leaving spaces open, which we don't want to do either.
Yeah. And that's been what I've witnessed, is that on the parking, on the blocks that have permit parking, there is so much parking that's not then being utilized and is sitting vacant, pushing all of those vehicles over to permit, to other non-permitted blocks. Is that what you guys are seeing? And Darlene, I'm looking at you too,
I
because
mean,
you're
if
on
you
South
look at
End.
Garden Court, and it is a 4-block radius, there's only houses on one side the whole way around.
Yeah,
So, you know, when you look at East End Avenue, when they went to permit parking, most of the time, that one side of the street is empty unless people are taking chances on getting tickets.
yeah,
And then if you go on Marshall Street,
yes, the
you
same.
know, it's the exact same thing. Now,
Okay.
luckily, New Dolphin Street does not have permit parking yet. So when you're coming around, and then when we're here on Ann Street, the same thing. I mean, one of the things I understand, because a lot of people on the 0 block of Ann Street went for permit parking. If you talk to them now, most of them do not get parking spaces in front of the house. It didn't create what they thought it would create, is open space for them to park.
Yeah.
And parking is an issue, and we were waiting to see when the new ordinance was going to be written about residential permit
Yeah.
parking.
Well, it is going to take a little bit of time. I would like for us to be rolling that out and doing more education about the changes next year as we move to fully implement. This does not mean that residential parking permit
Right.
as a whole is going away.
Correct.
It means that there's going to be some different processes to get a residential parking permit. There's going to be a different level of analysis, and that there's going to be additional consideration given to businesses and like what's going on in that block, knowing that that changes over time.
Right.
And a regular review, because some of these blocks, for example, there's a block of Reynolds Avenue, one block of Reynolds Avenue that has permit parking, and nobody knows why that it's
Yeah.
there, and it's not, you know, it's kind of not really fully utilized to begin with. So that kind of thing. So, or in the Southwest around First and Crystal, you know, there was a business there. That business is not there anymore. So we don't need residential parking there any longer. So that kind of updating and process. But Mr. Wilson, this isn't addressing your immediate concerns right now, but I'm asking your forbearance while we sort this out. Because if we proceed, it's just, we're just passing the buck on to the next block and the next block and the next block until it's the most inefficient parking possible.
And I understand that, but right now we're that block that everything is
We are
rolled
too.
to. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We feel
So,
it
you know,
too.
between here and there,
Yeah,
I guess I got 2 points. One is between here and there, we're gonna pay the penalty and the price for
Yeah.
that. Why everybody else is,
Yeah.
you know, using this. And then the other question is, if you guys gonna take 18 months, whatever that period of time to get this straightened out, where does that, if we don't have a permit and other blocks do, where does that put us in that process? Do they automatically get preferential treatment because they already have a permit,
No.
we don't have a permit, and we got to go through that process at that point in
no,
time?
I don't think that that's the case. And I'm just hearing this timeline right now, today. And so we have some conversation to have about that. Because I understand that that being caught in the middle is of no help to you and little consolation, given the fact that after 5 o'clock, you can't find a parking space near your residence. So I think we have to review that timeline, and I'm going to look to Director Campbell and Dean to have that conversation and to circle back to you. We have Mr. Harder, your contact information, and Mr. Wilson, if you can leave yours on your way out. I should say everybody should
I did
have
sign in
signed
there, yeah.
Okay. then we can circle back and give you an update. And Darlene lives down the block. I don't know if you know each other, but you all live on South Ann.
You know that.
Down the block, and there's been just a number of issues in the neighborhood around Garden Court that we want to try to resolve.
It also doesn't help the fact that the existing permit parking that's in that area, each block has its own zone. So it's like if you live in a 100 block, you're in one zone. If you live in a 200 block, you're in
Yes.
another zone. You can't
East
switch
End
from zone to zone to zone. That's a little atypical compared to like the downtown area where multiple blocks are under one zone. So you're not necessarily, you might live in one block, but you're not necessarily limited to parking that one block.
Well, and we should also look to see if there's anything in the interim that can be done in the southeast
Right.
specifically.
One of the
You know,
things I was thinking, since you mentioned about having cars parked there, waiting till the next street sweeping with a 48-hour enforcement, it's already on the ordinance, but we need to just post it. Would that be something that might encourage people to move?
The 48 hours, say what that is?
We have an ordinance on the books that we can put signs up in certain streets, no parking over 48 hours.
Oh.
I have one of those. Let's make one of those on Fifth Street.
Yeah.
Seriously.
It would just require city, that's actually administrative.
Yeah.
That doesn't require any application, that's administrative. And it would just have to have LPA enforce it.
That actually is a required 75%, just like.
Oh, is it really? Okay, I stand corrected, I was not aware of that.
Rhonda, can you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
For 48-hour request, it is also a petition similar to a residential permit parking requires 75%.
Really?
That was
I
in
did
effect.
not
For
know that.
enforcement?
For
Is it
enforcement?
coming down and mark the
No,
cross?
to get it on the block, to request the 48-hour.
Oh, to get the
sign.
sign put on
To get the
block.
signs, but not for enforcement?
No, the signs have to be posted. so-
For enforcement.
Right.
Well, that seems like an ordinance change in
Yeah,
order, does
exactly.
not?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, we can work on that. Okay,
Can I make one other suggestion? Like,
Please,
if
Ms.
you're gonna change the ordinance, it would be good, like, to have some input from the community, like if it's gonna change, or can we have meetings and make some suggestions?
Absolutely, and that's one of the
on
biggest
how
complaints we have.
Changing that permit.
We don't
would
have enough
help?
public participation when
Okay.
permit parking is established.
Yeah.
Right now, you get the 75%.
That's
Traditionally, they come here, we grant it, and then we've got a meeting full of people
Who are-
in another month and a half.
Okay.
We had no
So we
clue
could
this was
start
happening.
meeting and
That
add some
stops.
change, and make some suggestions to you before you.
which is why
change it.
the process right now, so we have a working committee, just so everybody knows, of Dean, myself, Tanae Darby, Jake Thorson, and
Steve.
Steve,
Steve.
and then there's one other person.
Larry.
Dick Hecker, who are from the southwest. Because in the southeast and southwest, we have the most dense neighborhoods with limited parking opportunity. We've been trying to figure something out to then take to the parking authority as like the next, like, does this pass the sniff test in terms of like, would this work? And to get their feedback. Then it's when we have a plan together, then we're going to roll that out to all of the blocks that have residential parking permit or just interested in this to get their feedback. And then this is why this takes so darn long. So we should just talk about any kind of interim strategy that we can come up with. And so TBD, Mr. Wilson, I know that's little, again, not what you want to hear today, but.
No, it's not, but I understand. Is there any way we can have a temporary permit for like East End on the side that is up against Garden Court, that there is no homes? It's adjacent to our block, but we're not allowed to park on that.
Park there.
But
Okay.
while you guys are going through this development, can we have access to that east end, on the Garden Court side where there's no houses
I
on
don't think
there
there's
right
any
now?
avenue for that. I don't think
In
there's
the
any way to,
ordinance.
yeah, in the ordinance or within the parking regulations or within the ability of LPA to issue parking permits for other blocks of people that don't live there. I don't think there's any avenue for that at all.
Because we're in a scenario where we can sit there
All my
and
years of
we're completely
transportation,
full
that's
and we
something
can
that's
see
never
them.
been-
Never
Empty.
been done.
But
Okay,
there is zoning parking in the city.
pardon me?
But there is zoned parking in the city, is that correct?
It's zoned as far as like when somebody comes like the 100 block. So for example, if the 100 block were to get the permit, that would be some kind of zone designation in the books. The next block, the 200 has its own zone, the 300 block has its own zone, so you can't go from zone to zone to zone. You're limited to that one block. Whereas, and that was the comparison I was making, the downtown district area, I think there's multiple blocks under one zone, so that's kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
That's gotta be, it's gotta be fixed.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, more to come. Thank you. Mr. Harder, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So extremely disappointing to hear that. You know,
Yep.
we're the ones stuck with it for a very easy solution, which is just have permanent parking on the street, as well as open up to something that already exists inside the city limits of zone parking, where we can park around garden and court apartments. If you take this map and you literally do the street view around the entire apartments, it's empty,
Yeah, I know. So
full of spots.
this is where I'm going to go back, and this is where I think that there might be something interim that we can do. And I know that it's never been done before, but we've never been in this situation before.
Mhm.
So I have to figure that out. And quite honestly, we actually do need to follow our own laws. So I have to go back to our solicitor and see where there's any flexibility.
Do we have any reporting on how the previous permit parking was issued and how that was agreed upon?
Yeah, we just described it. 75% of the residents came in, signed it, came to traffic commission, and I'm as guilty as others that we just approved it.
Mhm.
And now we've gotten to this critical point where it's creating more havoc than it was ever intended. Before, when this was all initiated, what decade was that, Larry? Did we start permit parking? In the 70s, there was a long gap of time between, okay, we established this permit parking, but we weren't adding blocks on an annual basis. Now it's gotten to the point where we're adding multiple blocks on an annual basis, and it is creating even a worse situation for parkers across the city. And so we have to dial it back. And so I will also say that those efforts have been delayed, and so we have to get back to it. In the meantime, I'm going to look at what we can do around Garden Court.
And is an immediate concern people driving on the sidewalks and parking in their yards and going across?
Yes, and we've had the chief
Walkways.
of police down walking South Ann Street to talk about
A little bit better. Thank you.
to talk about this issue and to address the issue, as well as a step up enforcement efforts related to that. But when you see that, you can call the police non-emergency number and report it.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a concern, absolutely.
Okay. So what is the timeline to follow up then for, an interim solution?
Well, I think you need to give me, I don't know, because I have to, our solicitor, there are numerous people that are going to be out over the next several weeks with vacation, so I don't want to commit something and then
Sure.
not be able to deliver. So Rhonda has your email address. I have it here, I think, too. And I will circle back with you about that.
Okay. And I know that there is something said earlier about that you do some sort of, understanding and looking at the street and tracking exactly if it is required or if it does need permit parking. Will that be happening as well during the interim period, where we can actually inspect the block and look at it and understand exactly what is happening?
Probably not, because it's going to depend on what the new rules that are promulgated. But I think we just have, Garden Court and the surrounding area is just a thorn. And I totally understand, and we have to figure something out.
Absolutely. So if we do get approved for permit parking, what would then be the process going forward? Would there be any sort of waiting period, any sort of timeline where
No.
before you get it's just yes and then it's in?
If we vote, but the pathway forward for you is slightly different, because I'm trying to come up with I'm trying to solve a problem
Sure.
that exists because of our current ordinance. Until we can go through the process of changing that, which requires this, let me just step back. Once we go through this process, then it goes to council for consideration, and then it has multiple readings through council until then it is enforced, and then there's a an
Mhm.
implementation period after that. So this is not a, like
Correct,
that.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I was asking that question, because if there's something that we can do in that
In the
timeline
interim.
while we're waiting,
I will
I
let
would
you know.
love to be able to help support that in any way I can,
Okay,
because it is an immediate concern and immediate need.
got it. I appreciate that.
Okay.
And I will keep you posted.
I'll send an email to Barry as soon as I can, tonight or
Okay.
tomorrow morning, to let him know about the requests that we've had for the permit parking, if he's got any suggestion. The other thing I would like him to look at as soon as possible is that 75% thing for 48-hour parking signs. That's ridiculous. That actually should be an administrative. That should be able to come and go through admin and public works, not a petition.
Okay, all right.
May I have a check?
Yes,
The parking
please.
study that was done back in '76 described Lancaster City as an acute parking problem.
It's not,
That was then.
that was then an acute parking problem in 1976.
And then for my information as well, what is the process if we wanted to get the same parking lines that you see on Walnut Street, where it's on a diagonal? Is that something that can happen on
For
South End at all?
back-end parking,
Sure.
I think the street width doesn't allow for that.
Okay.
On Ann Street.
Yeah, I was just thinking of other solutions other than permit parking,
Didn't
perhaps to
discuss
increase
a
it.
lot of that at the meeting we had with the police.
Yeah, and then one of the thoughts then is somebody would say, well, what about just horizontal lines to delineate parking spaces, and just let you know that when you put lines in a space, you have to meet a certain distance. You're going to lose about 25 to 30% of your overall parking when you
Right.
put lines down on the street.
Okay.
Angled parking is different. You actually increase parking at angle, but you've got to have enough clearance on the street to be able to back in and for traffic.
Do we know what that clearance is? Or we like guaranteed know that it's not South End?
Wouldn't work on hand.
Most, you'd have to have something like a College Avenue kind of width
Mm-hmm.
for angled parking.
Liberty Street, College, et cetera, those.
And it seems like Walnut as well.
Can do that.
Where on?
Ann Street.
Right next to Lancaster Brewing Company, I believe they have that back end parking.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Carter.
I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to deny.
So moved.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
All right?
Aye. Okay, more to come on that. And Rhonda, just help me make sure to track these blocks over time so that we can circle back, okay?
Okay.
All right, 37, Lisette Vargas. Is Lisette here? Okay,
She
well,
sent me an email, said that she could not log into the Zoom meeting, so I responded back to her and said our meeting is currently in progress in person, gave her an address, so I'm not sure if she'll.
okay, we'll hold that one and come back to it. Okay, item number 38, South End concerned neighbors to address safety concerns at South End and Green Street.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi,
Darlene.
Darlene Bird. South End and Green, I think you're looking at it right down there. Garden Court has a parking lot on my left, and it has two entrances, and yeah, down a little further, right there. And there's two entrance ways to get in, and then when you're coming out of Green Street, that is a very unsafe neighborhood. I mean, an intersection. And I think we talked to Mr. Steve about getting some safety lines painted there. We do have a corner store. We have kids running from Garden Court to the corner store all the time. There were several accidents there. I think the last one was a motorcycle accident that happened on that corner, and someone was hurt very bad. This is something we've seen as a problem in our neighborhood for quite some time. South End has been very pivotal at getting all the stop signs going down Ann Street. At one time on Ann Street, you could run from King to Duke. And if you could imagine the racetrack runway it used to be. So we played the role of getting all the stop signs placed. This is a corner we've been trying for a little while it's really been dangerous, and to get that three-way stop sign placed there.
Do we meet the warrant?
It does not meet the volume warrants, or the, if it would meet, if it would have 5 crashes within a 1-year period, then it could reduce the volume warrants so that but in either case, it does not meet them. I do know that, just being out there are some concerns with sight distance, so they're, removing a parking space or so on the southwest side.
Not an answer. I'm sure the one
Yeah,
on the block would
but,
agree.
like-
We don't want to lose any parking
Yes, I know.
spaces. Yeah. I mean, it is, like I said, it's really a safety issue, and it's a shame that, we almost wait. I mean, I know when South End started in 1989, there was a young boy that got hit on the corner, and that was the part that got us, because there was about 75 people standing there, and nobody knew who the child was. We didn't know who the child belonged to, and that let us know how transient our neighborhood became, and that's when we started South End. There was a young girl that was hit here. I thought Betty was going to come today, her cousin, who was hit and paralyzed. To this day, she's in a wheelchair. And yes, it was a distance apart as far as you're looking at years, but we also looked into the state to see if there's any regulations or any way for us to appeal the decision, and they said it is a decision solely up to the municipality. There is no way, like Penndot is saying, there's guidelines set that we have to meet. We talked to them, because when it got appealed the last time we were here. And they said that's a decision that's solely up to the municipality for putting the stop sign. I think this area really warrants one. And with all the parking problems that we have, people are parking very close to the corner, which is interfering with sight. And like I said, our neighbors don't want to lose a spot. Parking is like precious. So to move and lose 2 spots all the way around would even be detrimental, especially on the 100 block where they're trying desperately, to address their parking issue.
The installation of a stop sign would technically remove parking because of the requirements that no parking within 30 feet of a traffic control device.
Right, there and there on these 2 sides. But if you're looking at site where this sign is and people park there, you can't see. Usually there's a car parked closer to that corner than what it is now.
Right, on the right.
So coming out, it's very dangerous. And we understand, and with our conversations, it's not a whole lot of parking is not being enforced because the police understand there is a parking problem. And it's like, what's one way better?
This has been the balancing act because parking is such a problem across the city, but we also have these really dangerous intersections where we have high crash intersections. So we have been prioritizing where we're ticketing to improve sight lines. And those sight lines save people from having accidents and so on. So in this case, Darlene, you said that it was up to a municipality. Who said that? I'm confused.
So Penndot's not going to say whether
I see.
There's no appeal process through Penndot.
No, yeah. The municipality is responsible for local roads and all the traffic control devices that are set there. But there are state and federal guidelines which each municipality needs to follow. And a lot of this has to do with if we put too many stop signs, we're looking at stop signs as speed control, and that's not what they're intended to do. So if we put stop signs everywhere to control speed, then people won't pay attention to the stop signs and they lose their effectiveness. So, and that's one of the reasons that these guidelines or these requirements are in place. And they're federal and state. It applies across the United States that, the same warrants and considerations for stop sign, any kind of traffic control device, we're required to follow. So if we don't follow those regulations, then we're subjecting ourselves to, the same, there could be litigation or it could be challenged. And, as an engineer, we're not using sound engineering judgment in applying them. So that's why we make sure that we meet these warrants before we install these traffic control devices.
Right. And so what other traffic control device can you install for that intersection? I mean, we ask for speed bumps. They won't do that because of the snow plows and everything we've been told. We ask for reflectors. I mean, what is the city offering to address that if they don't want to
The
give
one
us a
thing
stop
that I would
sign?
note that there is a handicap ramp that's currently being installed, I believe, on the northwest corner. So providing a pedestrian crossing at that intersection, I think would try and, highlight that there were people that crossed the street there. Because right now there are no pavement markings or anything to indicate a pedestrian crossing. So I think that is something that we should be adding to the intersection.
Mayor, if I could, real quick, Ms. Burling. I know Sergeant Luciano was down to talk to you and a couple of the other neighbors. We dealt with some of the driving on the sidewalk. Parking.
Right, and we talked about
And
the
that,
stop
which is a
sign.
little more complex. Yeah, as both the mayor and Cindy said, we're well aware, there's a lot of intersections of cars parked right up onto them. Not all of them necessarily cause a sight line issue, so we do let
Right,
some
right.
slide because parking is tight in different spots. The other part is, we can't be aware of each problem at each intersection until we have conversations with you. We've started some different enforcement down there with the speed sign that we have down, which, we've had great success in different locations with those, moving them. Just so you're aware, we currently have 3, and Mayor, I'm not sure if the staff even talked to you. I know they're looking at a grant at another 2 or 3 of them potentially, but to give us some options of moving those around, which help. There's an item coming up later on an intersection, same thing. We really weren't aware of some of what was going on. We saw crashes starting to tick up. So we've started not only enforcement with that, but with working with Cindy and the engineers, other things. As simple as it sounds, when she talks about putting in the markings for a crosswalk, that's actually a huge item on slowing down. There's always going to be certain goofs that don't care what you put there. And then that's where we step in and try and deal with them in essence. But the hope is, and you'll start to see more enforcement down at that intersection. Not that we're going to be pushing cars back and trying to get rid of the parking altogether, obviously, but making sure those sight lines are open with things that, and other suggestions that we might put back to Cindy, hoping to slow that stuff down and take care of that. To address the multi-directional stop sign that Cindy was talking about, and we run into that in the Southwest, one of the things we found is if you have too many intersections in a row, what Cindy had touched on is exactly what happens. Nobody ever actually comes to a complete stop. You start getting those California rolls all the way through, and then that starts small, and it just keeps adding to it, where then people are running through. And again, not everybody, but all it takes is one idiot, to cause a major thing. So hopefully, again, some of the awareness and enforcement there, and again, we continue to shuffle where we're at. We've kind of changed our enforcement over the last couple of years of how we've looked at it, from just places where we've always had problems, where we think there's one, to, again, a lot of work with Cindy engineers, talking to residents, where we know there's a problem going on and we can find the data. And then not only just coming down for enforcement, but to find, hey, what can we do to stop whatever it is that's causing that? And again, that's where Cindy's ideas are coming in, like I said, with the crosswalks and stuff like that. There's no quick, easy fixes. That's the unfortunate part. I mean, you're well aware, you've been involved with much larger issues in that community for as long as I've been working here. So, I mean, I'm personally glad that we're here talking about traffic and not some of the other things we talked about over the years.
Exactly, yeah. One of the things I know, when they came and put the speed sign, they put the speed sign coming, facing up toward East End Avenue. And when we talked to Officer Luciana, he assured us, right, because that's a shorter distance. So when you're coming from East End Avenue to Green Street, it's a shorter distance. So when you're checking speed, you're not really getting the full speed. If you would have faced it the other way, which we called and asked and suggested, put it going the other direction, because when you're coming from New Dauphin and coming up the Green, the 200 block is a much larger block, longer block than the 100 block. So cars have a tendency to pick up their speed even more by the time they reach that intersection.
And
Now,
that
he had
is
said
going to occur, just so you know. Typically, when we put the signs out, we'll have them for a 2-week period at any one spot, because of collection date, and also after 2 weeks, it just kind of becomes background noise and people ignore it. Unfortunately, there are no signs out. They can do a north and a southbound with things. Again, we're limited to 3. So that just went up. Was that mid last week we got that down, I believe?
We took it down, yeah.
So fast forward in about another week and a half, That sign will then be switched. and we'll be
Switched to
doing
the other
northbound
side.
Traffic then as well.
And based on what that information finds out, how does that affect us getting a stop sign as far as many cars and the speed? Because we thought that was the purpose of putting that out, was to help in proving our case for a stop sign.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the speed doesn't necessarily, I would say the speeds in this, it doesn't necessarily impact the warrants for a stop sign.
I know we put on.
And you could look at other.
Did you want to add something?
Take Greg,
Please.
and there's a stop sign at every block coming up. If you count
It's
them,
needed.
except for between 200 and 100 block. It's not
long
This
stretch.
is a long stretch, but there's a stop sign all the way from Duke Street all the way up to King Street. There's a stop sign every block, except
And
for
those are,
between the 200 and the 100 block.
yeah.
And she just stated that in her statement that was one of the reasons. And there is a stop sign between, except for that spot right there. That's the only spot there isn't.
Yeah, and so part of the challenge that we have is that I have no idea the decision-making that was made for installing those signs, but in many of those intersections, if I'm correct, those are four-way intersections. This is a three-way intersection, technically, because it's a parking lot, not a street. So,
They're at what is that street? Susquehanna.
Susquehanna is a three-way.
Right there at Susquehanna and it's a three-way.
yeah.
And
I hear
it's
you.
coming out. There's.
I mean, yeah.
They had that one because I think a little girl was killed down there on the Susquehanna courts years ago. But there's a stop sign. There's only three ways. There's a four-way down on
Yes.
or whatever. it is.
And I'm just saying, I don't know what years they were installed or what the benchmark was for the rules in terms of installing them. I'm just saying that now, and I understand that this is frustrating because I find it frustrating to sit here and say what we can't do rather than what we can do because of the Department of Transportation, the federal and the state guidelines that we have to adhere to. I also know that it's very frustrating because we have multiple, well, pretty much everybody's here is either talking about speed or parking. Those are like the two biggest complaints, and they are the things that are the most intractable for us. Literally every person would like us to install speed bumps on the street. Now just imagine that for a minute.
I can understand.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And the places where there are speed bumps were before my time, and the requests that keep coming for more and more speed bumps. And there's just not, it's not possible for us to do that. The stop signs are also not possible. What we can do are pavement markings. And so because we're replacing making those ramps ADA, can we also make sure that we're doing the pavement markings when those are completed?
Right, we're doing the ADA because Green Street's going to be paved, so
Okay.
we're required to.
So
upgrade the ramp.
ADA is already exist right there on Green Street, on both sides of Green
It's
Street?
happening.
They
Oh.
already exist on
Oh,
both
yeah,
sides.
but they're not, they don't meet the federal code that we need to meet now.
Okay.
So we're under consent decree, as you know, to replace a certain number of ADA ramps because it wasn't being done for a very long time across the whole city. So we have to replace those to meet the standards that are set for us. And as part of repaving Green Street, which is happening this summer,
Yes.
that means that there's an opportunity for us to do the pavement markings. Okay.
When, I don't know, the pavement, when are the pavement markings going to go down?
So the pavement markings for, once they pave Green Street, they can do they'll do the piano keys across Green Street. I would also, and there will be a ramp across Ann Street as well. We do need to have them construct a ramp on the other side of Ann Street.
Mhm.
So once that is done, then we.
You mean other than where the parking is?
Basically where that van is now, we would need to put a ramp on that side to receive the ramp that's being constructed on the corner store side.
Which, guess what? Impacts parking at that spot.
Exactly, when you already have the access to go up right there. So I'm sorry, but I missed your answer to if they put the speed sign across the street and we find out there's a lot more traffic and it's traveling a lot faster, how does that affect whether or not we get a stop sign?
It doesn't really,
It
play
won't affect
into
it.
the warrants for a stop sign.
Is there I know I would benefit from this, but maybe like a one pager about stop signs, because it is an ongoing request. I mean, Pearl Street is a regular. I appreciate that Adriana's bringing it to us this year, but in previous years, every year, people have asked for additional stop signs on Pearl Street. So we get these requests on an ongoing basis, and I don't want to waste people's time either, Darlene, in terms of what we can and can't do.
Right. And when do we look at safety as an issue? I mean, we say, oh, if there's 5 accidents in a year, do we wait till the next child gets hit and gets killed and we come back up here and we look at you and say, why wasn't there a stop sign put there?
And that is the difficult position that I'm in, because who makes that rule?
Right.
Not me.
To put the stop sign?
Yeah, to put the stop sign. We have to follow this guidance that is.
Is there any way we can get a copy of the guidance from the state and the federal government about stop signs? Because we did a lot of research in 2018, talking with Penndot, trying to ask them, what are the regulations, what are the guidelines for a stop sign, and everything that they sent to us, and all the information and all the people we talked to, they said is a municipality decision.
Yes.
That it's not a federal and state decision unless it's federal and state roads, then they have a say. But they said if it's not, the municipality can make that decision. And I mean, we did a lot of homework about the stop sign because we applied for it in 2018. We looked for it even prior to that. So every year we're looking and we're gathering information to find out. So if we can get a copy of those regs, that would be helpful to us to see what they're saying, because we do know if they have regulations, they have to have a process to appeal them. And we have not found that yet, that there's not a process. And even if it comes from the municipality, that you approach the state and the federal to appeal the decision not to put a stop sign there.
If you Google PennDOT stop sign guidelines, one
We
of the
did
first
that.
things I see is a PDF, technical Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, effective stop sign placement. It's a 3-page PDF. Now, when I'm going in it, it doesn't give the specifics, but what it does is it cites multiple
For state roads, not for non-state roads.
No, because in here, it's something called an MUTCD. I think it's a municipal something.
The Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. That's the federal
MUTCD.
guidance that everyone has to follow. PennDOT is telling you that they don't, it's a municipal decision because they will not get involved. But we still have to follow the same guidelines that PennDOT and the federal government follows in installing stop signs. So they're telling you that it's a municipal decision because they're not going to get involved because it's a municipal road. They don't want any liability associated with any kind of involvement that's not their roadway. So we are still following the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the same as the state and the federal government.
And you cannot appeal their decision.
It's an engineering decision.
Right.
So, that's, as an engineer, you have to study the situation and then determine whether it meets the warrants and the criteria.
So there is an appeal process if the city would take it on.
Anything that, engineering is statistics. It's like you do random samplings of a spot, that's all part of engineering. That's engineering. You just go out there and say, okay, we got these many cars, this many spots, whatever, and then you do that random sample, and then when you come out with the conclusion, that's what your answer is. So the answer is that if there's cars speeding up there, and you could say all day that it's engineering. Okay, so, but has anybody ever studied it?
The speeds?
That's
Or the
that
intersection?
spot, that
The
engineering
engineering spot, yeah.
engineering. That's she's saying it's engineering.
Yeah, I mean, we've collected traffic volumes, we've collected the crash data to look at it.
So you have an
We've collected
engineer's,
pedestrian volumes, yes, we looked at the.
can
site
we get a
distance.
copy of the engineering report for that site?
Yes.
Thank you,
Okay,
thank you.
I still do recommend that we eliminate a parking on the southwest corner for, 20 feet or so to improve the sight lines at that intersection.
Show me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the other way, Rhonda. Yeah, that,
There's no parking there.
There's no parking there now.
next to the,
Nobody parks there.
no, it's the corner with the, I guess, is it blue or black car there?
Where?
Right, what, the silver car now.
the silver, so removing that parking spot?
Yeah, that spot stays right there. Yeah,
There's no parking.
right there.
No, I'm saying in that location right there. That would improve the sight line for people trying to exit onto Green Street.
Exit from Green Street onto South Ann?
Right.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. All right. Because this is an intersection that's going to get paved and remarked, can we have a follow-up with what the plan is, and then Darlene will shoot you an email, and so that we can have some additional conversation about what the plan is for the intersection and the markings and parking and signage?
Right.
Okay. But in the meantime, I'm going to make a motion to deny the stop sign. But actually, you didn't make a request for a stop sign. So
Well,
it's
we-
to address safety concerns. Okay, so this
So
is
our
approved
official
then.
request was not for a stop sign. That's what we asked Luciano for. So we
Okay.
have not made a request for a stop
No,
sign
you're
yet.
asking to improve safety concerns. And so what we're proposing for improving safety concerns is pavement markings and a sightline review that may impact additional parking on South Ann.
Okay. I mean, we have an initiative, Safe Streets,
Yes,
and you have a neighborhood that's telling you, this is what makes safe streets in our neighborhood. And again, and it's a repeated behavior, whether we're talking about how to deal with drugs, how to deal with housing. You know, we come and we say, you want neighborhood engagement, and we're saying, okay, we looked at our street, here is our area. This is what it's gonna take to make it safe. And we got this whole initiative going through the city about safe streets. But yet when we come, it's like, well, we can't make that corner safe for you, but we'll try to put some lines down and hope that the kids recognize the lines. It's not so much the cars coming out, it's the kids running from Garden Court, running across the street to the store, you know, and they're not looking and saying, oh, there's a line there, that car's gonna slow down, and, you know, and we see so many accidents and so where kids almost got hit. And I mean, and I'm willing to make a request for a stop sign and bring my neighbors in to let you see, it's not just me saying it. We have people on the 100 block whose grandchildren almost got hit by a car so many times trying to get to that store. And, you know, but how much is safe streets if it's limited on what you're gonna do to make our streets safe?
well, Darlene, I appreciate that, and I also appreciate that this is wholly unsatisfying. And I find it also wholly unsatisfying because
Yeah.
I can't control how people
Right.
drive through the city of Lancaster.
Right.
There are many, many restrictions that are placed on the city in terms of what we can and cannot do, which I find equally frustrating or even more frustrating because people like you who are organizing and doing the work in the neighborhoods, bringing these issues to us, and yet what are we actually able to do? So what we can do are certain things that we can do. What you can do and continue to organize and continue to advocate for is that people pay attention and to be mindful about how we're driving through the streets of the city of Lancaster, recognizing that there are people of all ages and abilities and in all kinds of transportation who are trying to get around. And it is a miracle to me every day that more pedestrians aren't struck in the city of Lancaster, given what we see in terms of speeding. We've had repeated crashes on multiple streets that are not South Ann Avenue, that are South Ann Street, that are equally or more problematic in terms of injury. And we're not telling them any different, which is equally maddening. So what this request is for is to address safety concerns. And the safety concerns, there's a plan that's being implemented with Department of Public Works with the repaving of Green Street. So I don't know what to do with this wording of this motion or this agenda item.
To be handled administratively?
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's nothing that needs to be approved or denied. It's
okay,
just a request.
administrative. Okay, and please forgive my soapbox, Darlene.
Okay.
How are near misses being recorded and are they being recorded?
They're not being recorded.
Then that's really flawed data.
Well, yes, it is, Adriana, but here's the thing. How do we record near misses?
I don't know, but I can't tell you how many times I've called the cops and said, I'm 3 inches from my death being taken out. Here's somebody's license plate and they say we can't do anything.
Yeah,
I can see it. And then it doesn't even like really show up in.
I understand.
Like, we are so reactive instead of preventative and it's just so wildly frustrating.
And so some of the things that we've been trying to do related to prevention have to do with some of the street engineering as well as advocacy in Harrisburg for some of the changes that we want. And please join me in those efforts. I do feel like I am shouting into the wind, though. Okay, moving on. Item number 39, 500 block of East Chestnut Street. Ms. Short and Ms. Dina. Hi, Dina.
Sorry, it doesn't get any easier with me.
That's okay. We have made some other improvements to the intersection. I know that you have had 2 significant crashes. Thank you for sharing that, those videos with us. Very fortunately, I think nobody was hurt.
Correct.
And so you are here today to address additional,
So the accident count is high. The data that I received, I think it has to be higher than 19 within 3 years. It does not make sense to me. When I moved in 2016, I had the accident count from previous years and it was 27. And we're at 19 now for the last 3 years and it seems low to me. Maybe we are improving with COVID happening last year. People weren't traveling as much. And I'm with Darlene. I'm not sitting here waiting for me to walk out calling 911 because somebody's dead or seriously injured. This is my life. I hear an accident working from home. I grab my safety vest. I go out. I direct traffic, call 911 and make sure everyone's okay. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm tired of it. I've had a homicide across from me. I had to deal with that. I have consistent accidents all the time. A dog running off now, a girl screaming, like it's traumatizing to the neighborhood. And there are 20 people that should be standing here with me. Granted, it's the work day. They can't make it. And we're just now fed up. We cannot see. Marshall is another one. That's 16 accidents within the last 3 years. Marshall and Chestnut, another issue. That's a block down from this one. And it's a racetrack. So I know you have the digital speed limit device there now. That's great. It slows people down, but that's not a permanent fix once it's removed. I would love for the police, now that the bill has been passed for the speed radar guns, if that's happening.
No, it has not been passed.
Oh, I
The
thought it
Senate
was
has passed
passed.
it. The House has not passed it. It has
Okay.
not moved.
Well, then I'll buy my own speed gun and sit on my porch and do it because I'm about to put nail strips down.
Yeah, need something.
I
Yeah.
hear you. Lieutenant Laser, is this a block that we can do targeted enforcement with VASCAR?
Yes, just for what it's worth, again, and address a little bit all the concern, if I could just throw out, in almost 3 decades of doing this now, I've never seen, and I've said this at other meetings, the amount of interrelation between city engineering, us, and like trying not just to pound an area for enforcement and move on, but making changes, the smart changes though, to intersections and things that actually make difference with it. You know, we're going to continue to, like I said, unfortunately, there is no quick fix for some of them. That intersection in particular, I know we were out, I would say within 48 hours at most, between Cindy and myself and some others in the email chain, there were some ideas we have that are coming up. Now we have to get them done and put in. We are starting enforcement there. We did have a detail down, not last week, the week before. Sorry, I'm losing track. You know, and it's one where we'll continue not just with the speed, but we'll also do some of the pedestrian enforcement where we're dealing with crosswalk. Because even if there's not a painted crosswalk on an intersection, there's still by definition is a crosswalk. You still have to be able to get across.
Sure, they did just implement piano keys. I think that's what they're called, piano keys. Those were just implemented. The tree needs to consistently be trimmed. The blinking light needs to be working, but we're still having accidents. So,
and it's going to be one of those, that's unfortunately one of those intersections that you're right, for whatever reason, it does come and go. Like we'll have some problems there, and then, and I wish I had the magic ball answer of what it was. But we'll continue to put more of a presence there. Again, just to address your concern or question with the radar gun, the mayor touched about where it moved and stuff.
Sure.
I still have an article from 95. I remember that was supposed to be coming soon to municipal officers. We're almost in
And
2025.
also, let me just say, the kicker to that is that it would only be if you're traveling 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit in the existing legislation, that you would be able to, that our officers would be able to issue a citation. If that isn't some kind of fill in the blank, then I don't know what is, because our whole city is posted at 25 miles an hour. Yes.
And we do have other ways we can enforce speed there that are effective to that area. Not quite as quick to set up as what a radar is, but that's not like to save all the things. And I mean, fortunately for us. So that area, and I know we have one or two others after this, or at least the one other, Plum and Orange. There are areas that we have now that we're going to, same as down on Ann Street now, picking up the enforcement on, because not only when we pick up the enforcement, does it make it aware of the problem for drivers and stuff in that area, but it also lets our officers there for a longer period of time, so you can start to observe stuff that, okay, hey, maybe this is a fix that'll also help with things. You know, it would be great to say that I have 3 people that I could put at every intersect, and I'm not trying to be smart or coy with you. We just have to keep kind of moving as we can through intersections to intersections. And that's not saying that putting yours down. Like I said, we've been out at that one. Ann Street, we've been down to. Plum and Orange, I just got the information for that. That's one that we'll start to put on our sheets as well with stuff. So again, that not just the enforcement end, but again, what we see from their stuff, again, we'll get a hold of Cindy and her crew and, hey, here are thoughts. But then again, that's where she comes in with her knowledge with the engineering requirements and stuff. And there are times where even our guys think we know what we're talking about, and they're like, we can't because of this, or hey, what about this? So it's not being difficult with you being here and asking it. That's the type of stuff that we need. It's the type of stuff that we do work on. We do work on complaint driven. We also work on, very heavy on the data driven end of things, because a lot of the stuff we do is on some grant money with stuff. So it can't just be, oh, this one looks like a good intersection.
right.
We do have to follow with some of the data.
So you know how at the corner there's that 20-foot no parking sign?
Yes.
I almost want to say, well, right here, I didn't realize you had it up, sorry. I almost want to say we have to take a spot away further back so you can see what's actually coming.
And that was one of the things we discussed, but then that takes a little bit more of a looking on her part.
Sure, I just wanted to put it out there so it's on the plate as maybe an option.
Are you talking about on the north side or the south side?
This side of the street on the left.
On the left, yeah, that was gonna, when
Yeah,
I went
so-
out there and looked, there was, somebody parked there, and yeah, it's still limiting.
Mhm.
So, I would say, yeah, for a short-term thing, we should limit, another 20 feet, move that, no parking sign.
Yeah, that would be
west.
great, because then you could actually see what's coming instead of closing your eyes and pulling out.
Yeah. Okay. So this is also administrative.
Well, we're taking away another parking space, so
Oh, okay.
we would need to.
So can you formulate a motion then?
To move the no parking sign on the north side of Chestnut Street, 20 feet west.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dina. Okay, Ms. Espenshade is here to talk about the 800 block of East Walnut. What else? Speeding and negligent drivers.
Same song, different block.
Yeah. Hi, Linda.
Hi, this is my first rodeo, sorry.
Welcome.
There are 12 row houses in my particular block from East Walnut, and I haven't gotten the names of each person, but at least 8 of them have had damage due to the new bike lanes being drawn.
Damage from the bike lanes. What do you mean?
Yes, because it used to be a wide enough street that people speeding down the street, and speed is an issue, but it's not the main issue in my opinion, but they would drive closer to the middle of the street. Now, when you're entering, when you're crossing Broad Street from East Walnut, from, 23 East coming into town, the lanes shift to the left, to the right, sorry, to the north. And so everybody shifts when they're driving, and so they're side swiping the cars. My car was totaled. My neighbor's car was totaled last year. Now this year, my mirror was side swiped. A lot of people have had mirrors. Some people have had greater damage than that because of that. And it's always people that are parked on the north side of the street. The protected bike lanes, I guess, were, did we get grant money or something for those? I guess, I'm not sure why those particular couple of blocks are protected bike lanes, because the cyclists that I've talked to, if they do use the bike in the city, they will bike in the traffic lanes because they say it's safer. If you bike in the lane close to the curb, everybody mentions doors opening. Well, that's an issue, I suppose. But there's also grates where people, bikes don't want to go over a grate. And so if they do, I haven't seen many bikes at all travel in this neck of the woods. If they're going to bike down to downtown, they usually use other streets. So people that park on the south side of the street can park closer to the curb just because there's more room. And I guess that one little narrow hashtag lane is for car doors opening? Is that the purpose?
That's so you're not doored when you're riding
Yeah.
a bike.
So anyway, if you park on that side of the street, so you can park closer to the curb, even though you're not supposed to.
So what you're suggesting is that because cars are parked on the street away from the curb, they're being sideswiped in that block?
No, she's saying on the north.
No,
The
they're
north side.
on the north side, the right, when you're coming into town.
Yeah.
I always say the right side, the north side, I guess. It seems to me that the line that was painted there is very narrow, and your tires are on the line.
Oh.
And so when people drive through on that block, they're shifting to the right.
I don't
from-
think the shift is necessarily an issue because there's a bus stop. There's no parking at the very
end.
Yeah, on the west side of Broad Street. So if people are shifting, there's no parking right in that area anyway.
That's not an issue, yeah. But when if if you stand in the middle of that intersection there, you can see that
Yeah, it is offset, and
Yeah.
and there is, if there's a certain amount of offset that needs to happen, then we could put some dotted lines through the intersection to try and guide people better. But by the time they reach where the accidents are happening, they should have straightened out by then if they were sort of going too far, because there's a bus stop right on the opposite side of the intersection. so there's no parking right as they're crossing the intersection.
Well, and they also turn left from Broad onto Walnut too, and they're swinging around and, you know, but they don't, they travel very close. I mean, when I sit in my car and wait for the traffic to go by, it's like, please don't hit me, please don't hit me, you know, because they're speeding too. I mean, it feels like speeding, whether it really is speeding, you know, I don't know. Sometimes there's drag racing from the light, but that's, you know. But is there any consideration to moving the bike lane to the outside?
Not at this time.
Like it is on, when you'd cross Lime?
So the reason we did the protected bike lanes is that we're trying to provide facilities for people that aren't comfortable riding in traffic. So it sounds like the bikers that you're talking to are the ones that, you know, will ride in traffic no matter what. And a lot of times these types of facilities, yeah, they have to slow down a little bit more than they like to travel more at the speed with traffic. So these parking protected bike lanes are providing a protected area for people that aren't necessarily comfortable riding with traffic. And that's the whole point. A lot of the bike facilities that we're trying to provide now are for what we call the 60% of people that are interested but concerned about biking because of the safety. So that's why we've, you know, installed these types of facilities. The reason that once you get up to Lime Street that it goes over is we just didn't have enough width in the street to provide the bike lane and the buffer and the hatched
Can we
area.
pretend that that's the reason for this block? Because it seems when you travel on Walnut Street through the city, it seems like some blocks are wider than others.
Right.
And the
Yeah,
lanes
they
are
change, definitely.
wider too. Can you paint the line on our side of the street out further?
Yeah, I'm not sure yeah, it was, you know, that area, the parking lane was probably a little narrower, but it is the width, you know, the minimum width required for a parking lane.
Okay. Is there any way to track how many bikes actually use the first couple of blocks of East Walnut? Because
we are trying to collect more data. I'm not sure if that is specifically targeted for a bike count, but
I mean, I don't know how you do that.
Try and get more people to bike. It's not just to.
Well, and I think a lot of people do. They just don't use those couple lanes,
Well, I know
those
more
couple
people would
blocks.
love to as well, but there's a lot of people who park in the buffer, and that makes it really unsafe. And a lot of people park actually in the bike lane around that block, and that makes it really unsafe. So I know a lot of people don't like to use that because it makes us feel unsafe.
And that, yeah.
I have another
question. You know, we are trying to
I know what the goal is. It's laudable goal, but you know, sometimes practicality should win out. I have another question that's unrelated, I think. Does that 48-hour sign have to, there's a man on our block who sells cars and he parks cars there forever. Would that 48-hour sign work to prevent that? Or?
Not if he's moving the vehicles. It
Okay.
pertains to a vehicle parked at one spot for more than 48 hours.
Oh. So just because he parks a lot of cars there doesn't mean that that's illegal? Okay.
I apologize, I have to step out. Director Campbell is going to take over facilitating the rest of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, I think.
So is there a way, is there anything that we can
Stay through these people talking, at least, so it doesn't look like I'm just blowing them off.
recommend? I mean, it's the same situation.
Something to deny or approve. It's just the fact that we did address her concerns, listen to the concerns.
Okay.
In her email, she did mention placement of speed bumps to control speeding. I just read over that to see if there was any.
That's not going to happen.
Well, it's not a state road.
Penndot will not let that.
It's not a state road, but, right. it's a city street, but given the volume of traffic on Walnut Street, that it would not be wise to put speed humps on that. We can look at, maybe some temporary delineators or something to try and slow down traffic as it's turning from Broad Street, if we feel like that's a concern, the speed at which people make turns.
Outbound 23.
Well, there are a lot of accidents there, probably not as many as a lot of other places, but when people are coming down Broad Street, they have a tendency to look this way or this way and not straight ahead. So the traffic is coming towards them on Broad is, that's when I don't know if you know what yeah.
So when they're turning left,
When they're turning left,
they're
yeah.
not looking at opposing traffic because there's
Right.
probably less volume on that leg of Broad
Yeah.
Street, so they're not
Mhm.
really paying attention to that.
Yep.
Okay,
So-
so that probably wouldn't.
Oh, and though I've seen in the county some places, your speed is such and such miles per hour on a little post with like a solar energy thing. Are they
Right.
expensive?
We-
Probably.
We are looking at installing some of those on Highland Avenue. So I think that's a good test to see how effective they are, because
Yeah.
this is a very similar situation. in
Yeah,
that
I think
it's-
that might,
it-
because that's really, you notice that.
Mhm.
So, okay. Thanks.
So I think it's just registered that on an administrative level, we're looking at a variety of alternatives.
Correct.
Right.
No vote. Okay, the next item is Stephanie Contess to address speeding and accidents in the area of North Plum and East Orange.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you all for letting us come talk. Yeah, I live on the 300 block of East Orange Street, about a few houses down from the intersection with North Plum. We've been there about 6 years, and speeding, we feel, has always been bad. It's a relatively narrow street, one way, so people kind of rip down it. And we've always had issues with people sideswiping mirrors. We've actually started renting a spot over a block away so that we can park safely. But within the last couple of years, we've been noticing an increase in really serious accidents. So the day I messaged Rhonda was a really bad 2-car totaled accident. So we did start to go back and kind of look at historical records and pull in some local neighbors and ask them what their experiences were. So I sent Rhonda kind of a list of what we've been able to collect in terms of accidents and the circumstances of those accidents. It's not all inclusive at this point, but just looking back to April of 2017, we've had at least 3 people struck by cars. One person anecdotally said there was another incident, but they didn't know the date of that. Within the last 3 months, there was a string of 3 serious accidents where in 3 months, it was 9 vehicles involved, 5 vehicles were completely totaled, 2 people had to seek medical attention. And so when I messaged Rhonda, she explained, this is really just to start the conversation, and I recognize a lot of, thought has to go into that, but I wanted the commission to see if there were traffic calming things that could be done, evaluations that could be done. My personal opinion is that people don't necessarily see the stop light. We're already very fortunate, as opposed to some of these other blocks, that we do have a traffic signal. But I know that there's flashing signals like what we have at Orange and Market Street. I know that there are warning signs to let people know that traffic signals are coming up. I know that other intersections in our area have delayed greens, so that when people, have to stop short, it gives them a little bit of extra time. So those are just our concerns that I wanted to bring up today.
Okay. Do we have counts verified? I see the list that Ms. Contess had submitted to Rhonda.
Right, we did, Rhonda did pull the crash data we did the last 3 years. And there were 10 reportable crashes and 10 non-reportable crashes.
Okay.
Based on the information that the police have, there were 2 crashes involved pedestrians and 2 involved bicycles.
Okay.
And then just anecdotally, when I talked to a few neighbors and I listed them on the bottom of things that I don't know if would show up in the non-reportable, such as mirrors being taken off.
I don't know if everybody reports those.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
if they don't report, then they don't necessarily,
Yeah. So you're saying 10 reportable, 10 non-reportable, and I don't know what limits there are in terms of like when you can take action, if that would meet a criteria.
yeah, it may be, like Rhonda said, we're able to pull the crash information, but we would just need to probably evaluate it in a little more detail to see if
Okay.
there's any types of improvements that could be made.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I guess you're noting the visibility of the signal seems to be, I think there were how many red light running?
I definitely
There
think-
were 5 that ran the red light.
I definitely think that's part of the issue. I think there's a number of factors with every intersection, but
Sure,
we've heard
absolutely.
complaints about the trees on the far eastern side as people coming into the city. And, yeah, for Google Maps, we're a street forward. This looks like Shippen.
Rhonda, yeah, can you move to the intersection?
Yeah,
with
so we're the
Plum?
next intersection behind you now.
I saw Plum.
No, you're fine. So you want to go a block that way, yeah. But there's, there's beautiful trees in the city, but unfortunately, they can limit visibility there. We don't have a no turn on red on coming from Plum to Orange. I know a couple of our accidents have been T-bone collisions. I'm not entirely sure of the circumstances, whether they were people running red lights or if it was somebody trying to turn into traffic. Yeah,
So
but it's been
So
concerning.
the trees create an issue for traffic on Plum or traffic on Orange?
Traffic on Orange. So how we're looking at it now, coming down Orange into the city, there, the street kind of behind us is covered with that thick cover. That was a concern that some neighbors brought to us, that might be limiting visibility.
And just for my clarification, it's primarily then the tree cover that's in the trunk, which is obscuring the driver's visions as well as pedestrian vision.
I would say the tree cover overhanging the road, because our traffic signals are elevated above the
So
roadway.
that so that you can't see the traffic signals either.
That's
So
my
it's a little bit both,
understanding.
okay.
That was one of the options that was suggested as a potential problem.
I think
Yes. And there's so many trees, because I drive that pretty frequently. There's so many trees that you really do have to go very, very slowly to be able to catch that light and actually see it. So it's not even just the trees at the intersection itself, it's all the trees coming up on Orange Street, on that block of Orange as well, and create some obstruction of being able to see that light.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I love the trees in the city, and obviously we don't want to kind of remove all of them, but that's why if there was
but in
flashing
some cases,
signals,
those could
things
be
to make
trimmed
notice,
rather than
warning lights up further down, up, before the intersection.
okay.
Cindy, these traffic signals, are they LEDs?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I need to verify what the size of those signal heads are. I think they're the 12-inch, which is what we would want them to be, but I just wanted to verify. Maybe adding some back plates or something to the signals too might help with the visibility. So there may be some options that we
Yeah.
can look at.
And I understand that it might be a lot of incremental little changes to help improve the situation. None of us expect, it's going to be solved overnight, but it's been very concerning recently.
Or do we put a strobe?
Strobes are no longer allowed.
Oh, okay.
No.
Then maybe put a placement of another signal, where we have a pedestrian light, maybe have one facing toward Orange Street on that level.
That could,
Something of a possibility.
it could be. I'm not sure that's really going to help in this situation. I think the tree, maybe if we could have the arborist look at do some crown raising or some looking at the trees.
And certainly Lieutenant Laser said before he left that he was planning to do a walk there next week.
Okay, great.
To be able to look at visibility, so perhaps we coordinate that walk with the arborist and maybe have the opportunity to not only look at the trees and other aspects of visibility, but if there's something that may be necessary to augment how visible the light fixture itself is.
Okay.
The signal itself is.
That would be great.
The timings on the lights too, you know, let's say from Chestnut to Orange and King, et cetera, too, on Plum Street, because that too could be an issue. Also, in addition to the Orange Street, because the only lights at front.
Right.
And then Plum, and then. So that could be something that needs to be looked at.
Do you know offhand what the metric would be for adding a no turn on red from Plum onto Orange?
We would look at mainly probably pedestrian conflicts.
Okay.
So the number of conflicts that would be occurring there.
Yeah, just because, I mean, everywhere in the city, sight lines are hard. That one is a difficult one because people park all the way up to it. But
Right, yeah, if there's no visibility for the cars, then yeah, the sight lines are also a consideration.
That's something the city can do administratively, right? There's no,
Correct.
That's correct.
yeah, I didn't think that no turns were.
Yeah, that is something that we're want to look at more, is doing, making sure that no turn on red are applied at appropriate locations, especially where there's a lot of pedestrian and, bicycle traffic.
Okay.
So certainly in terms of what you have raised to us, this is administrative, and what we have as a plan of action over the next week or so to have at least police and our arborist, as well as engineering, be able to look at the situation, see what kind of clearance or kind of visibility may be augmented, whether through trimming the trees or other attachments. We'll look at the timing of the light signals. We'll look at a variety of things
That'd be
to
wonderful.
see what might be able to be done to
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
improve that situation.
Okay, I'm
Now,
good.
ordinarily, once we do such a thing, do we report back out here, or do we send a report out to
Should
the
we
complete?
table this? We can make a motion to table 2021, you know, and then come back with more in September.
So is it the case that it's, that it needs to be tabled? This is strictly an administrative?
Yes, generally when there's something administrative, admin, public works can handle it. It's not necessary to come back to a traffic commission to address the traffic issue.
But I guess the point of tabling would be to be able to report back out what we've learned.
Correct, yeah, tabling it would allow her to come back and be
Or we
before
could
traffic
just-
commission again.
We could just update her as well.
We can,
We can just update her as well.
Sure,
That-
absolutely. And we've done that administratively too, yeah, absolutely.
Either way, it's fine with me.
I propose that we update her.
Okay.
Well, it'll still be on the record. But then you'll have an answer, and you still can come back if what we've learned is not sufficient, or ignores something that is very important that we somehow missed along the way.
Okay, so we'll just mark 40/2021 as addressed for further discussion administratively.
And 41.
What's it?
This is 41.
41, right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you as well. Did Ms. Vargas arrive? Rhonda?
I guess not. I didn't receive any further communication after I told her to come here.
Table.
Okay.
Ms. Vargas. I'm going to make a motion to table 37/2021
Okay, very good.
to allow Ms. Vargas an opportunity to come to the September Traffic Commission.
So as I understand it, there's no other items on the action agenda.
Second.
Yeah, you need a second.
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 Okay, I'm sorry. So there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you. So that's the last of our action agenda, correct?
We need to take action on the consent agenda.
Additional
Correct.
business, there's an additional business item that came up.
Right, and then there's an additional business item too. think that's,
So on the consent agenda, and you may need to help me on how we do the consent agenda.
with the consent agenda, all we have to do is just make sure that 29, 2021, 30, 2021, 31, 2021, if there's any, if everything is okay on there, then we just vote and it's approved.
So
We
it
do
said,
it all at once.
so in the first one, it says the tentatively approved and installed.
Right, we just make sure that everything is accurate on there, just for
Okay.
approval.
So I'm going to make a motion to approve consent agenda items 29, 30, 31 as a whole.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Is there any debate? It's confirmation that Rhonda, it has been confirmed that these are the correct addresses?
Yes.
Okay, so then all in favor?
All right?
So the motion passes.
so we have an additional item that has been given to us prior to the meeting.
This is the additional business, accommodations for persons with disabilities.
That deals with the intersection of Mulberry
Yeah,
and West Vine Street.
Sorry.
So, do you have the figure, Rhonda?
Asphalt to art project at the intersection of Strawberry, Vine, and Mulberry.
Right. And just before I start, when is our meeting in September? Rhonda's checking.
7th?
That's the first Tuesday.
September 14th.
Oh, 14th.
because That's 7 days after Labor Day. So it's the 14th.
Okay, September 14th.
Okay. I just wanted to verify. So this is a asphalt to art project that we have a Bloomberg grant, and the Public Art Department has been working with the neighborhood to develop an artful intersection. This is at the intersection of Mulberry, Vine, Strawberry. And the configuration you see here is what is proposed. There was a lot of outreach to the neighborhood and trying to identify how to calm traffic through this intersection and, improve pedestrian access. So this was in working with Bloomberg, who was also helping with some of the layout. This is what they came up with. So it is sort of creating the pink shaded areas are areas that will be used for art. They secured an artist as well, and they are currently working on that design. They should have something in the next day or two, and then that should be finalized by the end of the month. But we just wanted to bring it to Traffic Commission to kind of show where we're looking at installing a stop sign as well as changing some parking on Mulberry Street. So one of the concerns that was raised in the process was concerns with taking away areas that are currently, as we've been talking about today, maybe illegal parking spaces, but are used regardless, just because of the lack of parking in the area. So one of the concerns that was raised was removing that parking. So we looked at changing the parallel parking on Mulberry Street to the back end diagonal parking, which is currently on the block to the north, prior to King Street already. So we're just continuing that treatment and removing one of the through lanes that is currently on Mulberry Street. So then, the idea is that with this art, it's sort of shortening up some of the crossing distances and trying to better guide vehicles through the intersection as well. This is a temporary installation, so this is not something permanent, but if we find that it maybe improves traffic operation, there may be some kind of permanent type improvements that could be made in the future.
So the type of art that it is it surface art painted, not vertical? There's no curb or no physical separation?
At this point, I'm not aware of any vertical separation. I mean, the actual art is going to be on the pavement. So if there are actually any delineators or any of that kind of thing that are included, I'm not aware of any at this point. I don't believe there will be. So it would be more of a graphical way to try and direct traffic. The one thing we are proposing is a stop sign at the top of Vine Street to slow traffic as it's entering that intersection.
And there currently is not one.
Correct. Currently, traffic comes up Vine Street, and a lot of it's cutting through from Vine Street up to Mulberry, and so traffic comes up the hill and makes that turn pretty quickly. There are some, visibility issues with, people that are trying to cross Mulberry Street there, and, so, and yeah, the reason I didn't know if there was time, so this installation is scheduled for September 11th, so I didn't know if there was an opportunity for the Traffic Commission to act on it prior to that, but it sounds like there isn't. If our meeting's on the 14th. So the installation of a stop sign would require Traffic Commission approval.
Any place needs a stop sign, it's there.
What's that?
If any place needs a stop sign, it's that intersection.
Right.
Okay,
I don't know about that, but you could only
So
come up
is
and
there,
go one way.
is there further discussion either about the proposal or
Go
about
one
other?
way.
Knows what to do when they get up there.
Is there further discussion on the commission about the proposal itself and specifically the stop sign which would be necessary to be approved before our next commission meeting?
The only thing I was going to add was I did attend the Southwest Committee meeting a few weeks ago. They did discuss this. There was just a little bit of concern, obviously, about the loss of some potential parking spaces. It does look like there's going to be a loss on West Strawberry Street, I think, because I'm looking at this. Now, the diagonal going up South Mulberry, that's actually going to increase parking, isn't it?
Correct, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't tell it.
I'm not
On Mulberry-
fully aware if they knew that or not at the time. But
Yeah, this was, how long ago was that meeting?
2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago?
Oh, really?
Maybe I had missed that part or just not had realized it.
So on South Mulberry Street, there's 8 parallel spaces with the back end diagonal parking. There will be 13 angled spaces. So
Okay.
there was, I think, there is some parking on, yes, you're right, on West Strawberry Street. Actually, it's where that car is right there on the left. That area would be lost, but it would be made up in the area
Right.
on Mulberry Street.
Is it a 1-for-1 or is there actually a net gain or a net loss?
It's more we keep talking about the legal parking. So
Correct. You're
this
very
is-
correct.
Because
You're
this
very
is
correct.
that's an existing crosswalk.
Mhm.
If you go down the hill, so technically, the people shouldn't be parked in front of the
So
in front of the crosswalk.
it sounds like there's a net gain of the legal parking spaces.
Correct, and I think, it was viewed as this was not, there weren't any loss then. Anything that, people sort of thought was a viable space, it was made up for in the additional parking on Mulberry.
After the art installation is done, is there a potential to, because I guess the art's only going to last so long on the
Right.
pavement. Is there the potential to take these shaded areas and make them more permanent, like the green markings on other streets, as just a visual narrowness of the street?
That's what I think part of this is, there's as part of the project, there are certain metrics and things that they want us to be collecting. So I think, and evaluating crash history and that kind of thing will be something that we'll want to look at as far as if it is effective and whether, we should be making these permanent type solutions.
So certainly in terms of not only the benefit of doing the artwork, but the benefit of, do I dare use the word precedent? The ability to say that we are creating a safer situation by having entertained these kinds of interventions. I'm listening to some of the other conversations from earlier this during this commission meeting, in at least 2 or 3 of those other situations, we have proposed and/or voted on losing a parking space in order to make that particular situation a safer situation. I think we recognize that in the city of Lancaster, whether it's through non-conformance of the regular parking regulations or the willfulness of many of our residents who are parking, many are parking illegally or parking in the places that create sight line obstructions. And this is a more pleasant way of being able to bring attention to that particular kind of a situation that hopefully we can all learn from as a way of maybe starting to ease us all into a different conversation about what makes our intersection safer. I really like this as a proposal, even if it is just painted on the surface, because it does set a different way of experiencing the street and the public right-of-way.
Public discussion?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know if there was a spark to speak. So I have a couple questions. So what do you have to do to get permission to paint on the street?
So, our public art department is trying to expand some of the artful intersection locations. So, yeah, if there's locations that would make sense, the city is open to those. It's just not a program that we've been able to, fully get, this is our first, well, actually Crystal and,
But they did one before.
Crystal and Third was, one of the first ones. So,
Right.
So this is sort of our second go at this. So,
So
yeah,
the process is,
It's experimental.
I'm not sure if the PACE program has an actual process yet or not. Millsy would know if you want to, because she's been working
and then
with them.
I see they're going to propose a stop sign. Did they do the study? Because I know of 2 major accidents that were on Vine and Mulberry Street, but in the years, but not like 5 and, what we're requiring that we have to have. I haven't, if there was, I haven't heard of them, and I usually follow the accident reports for safe purposes. Was that study done, and was that a proven factor?
So, yeah, I mean, we have looked at this intersection before. The main issue with this is the conflicts coming through the intersection and the speed, at which the.
But the accidents, because that's what we were told.
I'll have to go back and look at what the crashes
Because
were.
we were told we couldn't get a stop sign because there was not enough accidents. And I think they're
Pedestrians crossing
proposing.
Right, yeah, they come.
are in a blind spot for traffic here.
I understand.
So there are,
I
there's,
understand the pedestrian crossing. I was just concerned about the stop sign because you're proposing a stop sign. We requested a stop sign for safety, and we're told that according to the MUTC, was it, or MUCT, that there had to be so many accidents to get one. So I'm wondering, did they meet that requirement? Have you done that report?
I understand. So what's happening here is one of the criteria for a stop sign too can be sight lines to pedestrians. That is entirely lacking for traffic coming up Vine, that a pedestrian can be within that intersection and still not be visible to a vehicle until the very last second. So this is a circumstance where a stop sign should have been here for a great many years, but never was because of the recessed
So that
pedestrian
answer
crossing
is
far back.
no, they don't meet the traffic, but they meet the sight line for.
Sight line for pedestrian crossing.
there are several, there are different types of criteria.
Right. So when we're looking for a stop sign and you're gonna provide me with a lot of
That's correct.
information, can you provide me with the criteria?
Yep.
So
that
that
would
we
be
know,
helpful.
because we do believe that it is a sight line for pedestrians trying to cross over in this way and that way, and you can't see. And if you're coming out, there's a big tree right there on Ann and Green, and you can't see what's coming until you get out in the street. So, I mean, if that's a criteria, it would be good for us to know that.
Yes.
And they are
It's sight lines that can't be that can't be improved.
Right.
So like parked cars don't count as,
Right, we're talking about trees that you can't see, you gotta walk
Right.
out right there on.
Buildings,
Yeah, in fact, there's not even any vehicles parked up that way that would impact. It's just the fact that you come up that street and a driver being on the left side of the car is not going to see the pedestrian in his right corner of his vehicle
I
at
know
all.
that intersection very well because of the Catholic Charities that's there, and we do a lot of business with them.
Right.
So I understand that intersection very well.
But yes, you'll get that criteria, the variety of criteria. Are there other comments or questions? So in this particular case, it's, what is in front of us is the approval of the stop sign.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to install the stop sign on West Vine Street.
And, I'm sorry, I guess, and the parking, the back end.
And the parking.
Which is a net increase of the legal parking. I hear a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very, very much.
I did want to bring up one other item related to metered parking. I don't know if. This is the end, isn't it?
Yep.
Are you aware of what? I guess it sounds like the parking authority coordinated with our engineering department about metered parking on Prince Street. With Penndot repaving the road, there were a couple locations where they were talking about trying to add metered parking. I don't know if you're aware of this, Larry, because it just happened this afternoon.
I'm not aware of it.
Okay. So I don't know, it seems that technically, I think the Traffic Commission would need to approve that.
Is that the 200 block, 300 block of North Prince Street?
It's 300, I'm not good with the numbers, but so it was Lemon to James and Walnut to Chestnut.
I think that's the 300 block. yeah.
Okay.
And because already from Walnut to Chestnut, it's already metered. That's already with has the
Right, but on one side, I guess there isn't.
Yeah, so on the west side of Prince Street, on North Prince Street, is where the new signs. I just saw them as I was coming down.
It is metered, but I think on the east side it's not necessarily, or they're.
No, we give them 4 hours.
East side is not metered, it's 4 hour, because they serve the tower.
Right. Because of the towers, that was a big issue.
So that's not an area that we want to put.
Where, the east side?
The east
The
side.
west side is a 2 hour.
I'd love to put meters there, but kind of been done that rodeo before.
Okay.
With,
So that's Walnut to Chestnut. So then Lemon to James.
West side.
Yeah.
Wait, no. No, I don't think it was here. It was Walnut to Chestnut. This block. And this is only if we would be able to get Penndot to approve moving the center line. But
additional parking.
so there was, I guess Ibrahim and Kevin talked about additional parking maybe here. Yeah. So it sounds like if we can get Penndot approval on that, would the commission be okay with us installing that?
I make a motion to approve additional parking on the 200 block of North Prince Street with the approval from Penndot.
Yeah, and
the requirements, because I know Prince Street narrows as you go down to Chestnut, so it's going to be
right.
I think to that driveway.
This is all, yeah, it's all contingent on.
How about an on-street bike corral too in there? While we're at it.
I'll second.
I would love to do something like that, but not anytime soon. So the motion is for approval of the additional parking contingent upon approval by Penndot.
And I'm pretty sure they talked about Lemon to James as well. There was maybe 4 spaces.
We already have that condition.
It's on the east side,
On the east side?
yeah. So I don't know if there's a reason that that's not metered parking now.
I think it's predominantly residential. I think that may be why it's not. Are we are we amending that motion to include the block between Lemon and James?
On the east side.
Yes.
Okay. Is that the 300 block of North?
That's the 400.
Yes.
400.
Okay. So has the amendment also been moved? I mean, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. Is there any other business?
The only thing I'll just add is just that Steve, myself, Larry were at a meeting with the city solicitor talking about the proposed parking, and that was on June 23rd. I just wanted to make a record of that.
Okay.
Yep.
Don't hate me, but I have a question. The gal who was asking about Chestnut and North Ann Street, those billboards, are those considered something that could be a distraction as well for drivers and something that could be potentially removed if causing accidents per se? Have there been any studies done as far as billboards being very distracting and everything, and also eyesores? But since there's so many accidents right there, could they be removed as part of that traffic calming, as part of that, like taking away distractions?
I can tell you this from my experience, I have, from other municipalities, I have seen and heard comment from Penndot on like LED motion billboards being either denied or toned down or reoriented because of driver distraction on state roads. I don't know how a static billboard is addressed. Especially considering probably these billboards have been around for quite a long time, probably a very long time, and are on private property, and are probably addressed by pre-existing sign ordinances or something like that. That's something I can't speak of as far as static, but I know as far as digital billboards, I know that that's something that's been addressed and looked at. And no, that's all right.
I mean, I think certainly in terms of if one wants it addressed in later stages of not only the safe streets, but the Vision Zero, you might go on to the Engage Lancaster website and add that as a comment for consideration. But it's my experience, I mean, I don't have nearly as much experience as anyone on this table, but it has been that if it's stationary and not movement, if it's not kinetic, it's not considered a new obstruction unless it physically obstructs the view.
I mean, they do change. They just don't change often.
Right. But they're not kinetic.
I have something else that I wanted to just try and address quickly. I know everyone's probably ready to go home, but we had an email discussion about the handicap parking applications, and City Solicitor Barry had mentioned about removing the signature for homeowners to approve for renters. If we could just get that, I guess, approved through Traffic Commission, how we should have the application stated at this point.
I'm imagining that the issue involved that the application for a handicapped accessible or a handicapped parking space currently requires the signature of the owner of a piece of property, not necessarily involved in needing that handicapped access. The ordinance itself does not require such a signature or such approval. And so Barry, as the city solicitor, saw that the requirement for a signature seems to be an onerous or an unnecessary requirement, because the statute is saying if you are handicapped and live on that street, you should have the ability to petition for a handicap spot, and it must be renewed periodically. So it's if you move from that space, there's a requirement that you notify that you are no longer in need of that space.
Correct. Whether you're an owner or a renter, you're supposed to provide that, and we don't disapprove of handicap parking just because of a renter.
Correct.
But this is the first instance, and I did have another property owner call me and ask me if we can deny somebody if they don't sign, and I advised them based on ADA, we cannot deny
That's
somebody.
correct. That is correct. We cannot deny
Now,
that.
we have an approval for a handicap sign, and the property owner literally came out to our city workers and prevented them from installing the signs.
That's another issue.
The property is for sale. And until it's sold, there's no knowledge of whether the new owner is going to maintain a multi-unit, keep the tenants, and I guess they did not want these signs installed on the.
Well, yeah, exactly. Once, I mean, there's still going to have to be the certification that there's a handicapped person living there.
So, getting back to my original question, are we completely removing this, or is there different wording that we should put in this?
To be perfectly honest, I would ask Barry, what is the better way for that to be handled? I don't, if it needs to come before commission to be voted on, we can do it that way. But if it's just administrative, change the application, without having to go before commission, we can do that.
Several years ago, Mountville Borough established a handicapped parking regulation where they never had one. And theirs was just a simple, I believe, one-page application, name of the applicant and medical reason, and that was it. That was the bare bones minimum requirement for ADA parking.
Mm-hmm.
And when you compare, smaller municipalities like that, there's no difference between them and us.
Right.
And ours is, what, 4 pages, 5 pages? Yeah.
Four pages,
Yeah.
sorry.
When in fact, it shouldn't be really anything more than one.
So, Rhonda, it might be the case that we just take one more round with Barry and say, is there a simpler version that fulfills the statute? And I would imagine as an application, that would be an administrative function, not necessarily one that the commission has to vote on.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Anything else for the Traffic Commission? Well, I thank everyone for having attended and participated, and I'll entertain a motion to.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very, very much, everybody.